There's no denying that Shadow Fight 2 is one of the best fighting games for mobile. The simplistic controls, unique art style, and realistic animations made it a staple in the early mobile market, spawning several sequels and quickly replacing Vector as Nekki's flagship title. But with all the success the Shadow Fight series has seen, many tend to overlook the original. For those of you who somehow don't know what the Shadow Fight series is, it's a mobile fighting game that uses realistic animations and silhouettes to create an almost perfect fighter for phones. The most prominent being Shadow Fight 2, with its super cinematic storytelling, plenty of side content, and being half RPG, helped it to become an icon of mobile gaming. And there's Shadow Fight 1. Basically Nekki's unsung hero, as I'm pretty sure 90% of you never even heard of this. But without it, it's possible that the Shadow Fight we know and love, and sometimes hate, wouldn't exist. So before I do videos about its more successful brethren, let's take this time to take a step back and look into the origin of Shadow Fight. The story starts in the capital of Russia, Moscow. A man by the name of Dmitry Terkin sought to create his own gaming studio, and by 2002 he started a company called Nekki. The word Nekki is derived from the Japanese word meaning enthusiasm, and this would be the second time I know of a Russian-based developer having something Japanese related. What's the second, you might ask? Anyway, Nekki would start making games, but not for mobile. Instead, for two websites, Facebook and its Russian equivalent called VK. By 2010, their first game would be made, which was the legendary parkour game Vector. Since technology at the time was limited, the use of silhouetted figures was both a way to reduce lag in space and also to create a unique art style for the game, which worked in its favor. Since they didn't have to worry about the design of their game, they could focus on the movements and animations instead. So they used real-life stunts as references to make it more authentic, and it was an instant success, gaining a good reputation with players from across the world. Now armed with the tools to make games, they moved on to their newest project, and that was when Shadow Fight 1 was born. At first glance, it's a bit crude to look at, and also hard to find footage of, so bear with me. But otherwise, the gameplay was almost identical. Just like in Shadow Fight 2, you have mostly realistic animations and movements, along with weapons that are more or less the same. The somewhat stiff animations compared to the previous game Vector might be because trying to animate fighting moves is a lot harder than trying to animate running. But what it does remind me of is those old stickman fighting videos. Like, I have no idea why they always have beef with each other, but it sure was cool to watch. And since it was a social media game, instead of a regular NPC icon, it uses your account's profile picture, meaning you can technically be anything or anyone. And plus, it gives a way for players to interact with each other. Also, I know this is another tangent, but it also reminds me of Photo Dojo, an old DSi game where you can take a picture of yourself and add it to the game. Also, the original 6 demons and Titan from Shadow Fight 2 came from here. They weren't demons, just ordinarily strong humans. It was actually these 4 characters as the demons. And despite how old the game is, it actually had a lot of modes. The original bosses of Shadow Fight 2 were part of the bosses mode, which was meant to be a challenge for players once they got strong enough. As for the other 4, they were separated into the demon mode, which was basically the original raids, as you had to fight them multiple times to deal more damage, and you could join a clan to increase your chances. Speaking of which, the funniest thing I found out about this game is that it actually had real multiplayer. Actual PvP where 2 players can fight one-on-one, which is something its sequel wouldn't have until its Switch port. There were also tournaments and friendly duels. Basically, you fight against other players' shadows.
He's in, boys! He did it! He said it!
With tournaments being randomized, and friendly duels are those in your friends list. If you're looking for a more ranked type of mode, then the Dan test is where it's at. You have to fight to raise your global rank. If you played Tekken before, then you'll know what I mean. Once you've mastered the controls and beaten enough bosses, it was time to test your skills in the Gates of Shadows. Instead of being a plot device in the story, the Gates of Shadows was the final challenge. You have to fight all 7 bosses in a row, and if you manage to succeed, you'll be rewarded with the coveted Sword of Shadows, a sword so legendary I can't find a picture of it on the wiki, and its only appearance I've seen is from a video that you can probably tell what year it was made in. The game also had ways to keep players coming back every day. There's the daily quest to complete, and also a test your luck minigame.
Let's go gambling!
More you roleplay as Dungeons and Dragons, as there's a number of henchmen or the strength of a boss, and you have to roll the same or higher number to win. It literally puts the mini in minigame, but it's a fun little thing to do as a daily task, and you also have a chance to earn a strong weapon, which you can use in the last two modes. First is the Shadow Arena, where you get pitted against a certain number of players based on which faction you pick, and you all have to fight for the top spot. Then finally was the Tower of Death, the game's endless mode and true test of your skills, as you can fight an infinite amount of enemies using all your strength and equipment to make it as far as you can. And just like the Dan mode, there's a global leaderboard to see your score, further enticing you to do your best. The game was a massive success. It had plenty of content, was available in many different languages, and had easy to use controls. Controls that would have been perfect for mobile games, which resulted in Nekki shifting over to the mobile market and thus creating the Shadow Fight 2 and 3 we know, which meant that there was no reason to keep Shadow Fight 1 online. So by August 16, 2017, a full 7 years after it was released, Nekki announced that they were going to shut down all servers, even giving any returning players 9,000 gems, basically the equivalent of getting any hacked APK. But, in a surprising twist, due to the demands of the players, Nekki actually gave the game another month to stay. But by October 27, 2017, the game was gone. And that's Shadow Fight 1. Just like this video, the game was short and sweet. Everyone talks about the sequels because, well, they're better. But I think the game deserved a small chance to be appreciated again. And before I end the video, I'd like to bring up one of Masahiro Sakurai's philosophies on games. When he made his Kirby and Smash Bros series, he wanted a game that was simple and easy for anyone to play, but flexible enough that hardcore or veteran players can mess around with or push their limits. That's why the Shadow Fight series was so successful. It didn't rely on anything high quality, only where it counts, and it all couldn't be possible without its predecessor. Shadow Fight 1 walked, so Shadow Fight 2 could run. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short look back at the original Shadow Fight. I'll be honest, I kinda procrastinated hard during both the Space Marshals video and the Q&A. So this was a way for me to finally get 3 videos done in less than a month. And so far it works. It was a lot easier to manage as I didn't have to stress about it being perfect, and I managed to get it out on time. And thanks to the recent poll, I've decided to make post night the next video to start March. So until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.